When you think about education right now, what is the first word that comes to mind? And just be aware, you can curse on this
Yeah.
podcast.
Which is why I love you all. Clusterfuck.
There you go.
That was,
There you go.
What do you think are the biggest things that have changed over the decades in education that hasn't made it easier for teachers or educators or administrators?
I'll just tell you, when I first became an administrator 20 years ago, the biggest issues a campus level principal were dealing with were holes in jeans, like dress code, right? Now
Sorry.
I'm like,
Oh my God, I thought you were
dress
kidding.
code? No. Dress code, piercings, tardies, and then cell phones, but not so much of the social media side of cell phone, just having it out. Now we're like, I could care less what you wear. And so when we look at what not only our administrators, but your teachers are dealing with on a daily basis, it's beyond anything anyone could have planned for.
Welcome to Drinks with the Girls, conversations for women over 40 around connection, change, and the power of female friendship. Living well with stories to tell. I'm Karen, and this is Lisa.
We are moms and solopreneurs stepping into our own, diving into real conversations about things that matter to women in midlife.
We're here to spill the tea on everything that affects women in their 40s and beyond. Topics like loss and grief, changing relationships, launching kids, menopause, and reinventing ourselves in midlife. We are here to tackle it all.
Connect with us through a blend of our lived experiences, our friendship, the memory of our moms, plus a collection of real stories, honest conversations, and engaging interviews that will make women over 40 feel seen and remind them that they're not alone on this journey called life. Let's go.
Welcome back to another episode of Drinks with the Girls. This is going to be a fun one because we have a guest on that you have heard before, listeners. And this is very exciting because usually when we have return guests on, we do like a part 2 of whatever topic we talked about. This time, we are going to do something totally right rudder from what we talked about the first time. So buckle up. I'll leave you hanging.
It's fun.
I'm going to let you know what I'm drinking. I am drinking Wild Wonder Pineapple Paradise Prebiotic and Probiotic Sparkling Water.
Over by the mic. Over by the mic. Can't see it, babe. There you go. I know. Too far. Right in front of the mic.
There it is.
It's been that kind of a day.
It's delicious. What are you drinking, Lisa?
I am double fisting the end of an Arnold Palmer. And then I was at a brew pub and I was like, what do you have for ginger beer? And they were like, oh, we have this. And I was like, okay. And I realized it's one of my favorites. So this is Bundaberg. So at some point I will be swapping over to that. So special guest, part 2. Would you like to introduce yourself and let us know what you are drinking, darling?
Sure. Amanda Yance of the Midlife Catalyst podcast. And I am drinking a lime bubbly, which is my go-to favorite. And pretty much have 2 to 3 of those a day. That's my go-to.
You know, there's worse habits to have.
Yes. Well, I've had them, believe me. As we know, I've had them. So
all good.
Buckle up, listeners.
Yeah, it's feeling spicy already.
I'm not sure where this is going to take us, but it's going to be fun. As usual, we'll just go where the wind blows us. But today we're going to talk about the toxic lifestyle of being an educator. And we know we have some educators in the audience, so I know we have some people who are going to be very interested in this. And I'm going to just go ahead and start with my little tidbit in education because it was a very brief. My mom was a high school teacher and I was like, oh, hell no. I'm going to do anything but be in education. Well, so I majored in psychology. I thought, oh, I'll do that. I'll be a marriage and family therapist. Well, I got my master's. I went through my training, my hours, and I'm like, I really don't think I want to do marriage counseling.
Just kidding.
And I could have done some other things. But as fate would have it, I got my school counseling credential and I became a school counselor. And I worked at an elementary school in Long Beach. Shout out Mark Twain Elementary. And it was literally my dream job. It was it was the perfect blend of administration, counseling. I worked very closely with the special ed department. I was of support for teachers, and it was really a great job. And I only left because I had my second child. And I was not one of those moms who was good at working full time and parenting full time with 2 kids. So my ex-husband, and I made the decision that I would stay home while we could do it financially. So that's my career in education.
Is anybody good at working a full-time teaching job and raising kids while you do it? I don't think. I'd love to know who they are, because I always felt like I was shortchanging something.
Same. I felt like I couldn't do 100% at work and I couldn't do
Yeah.
100% at home, and I hated that feeling. So
I get it.
I had the privilege of being able to stay home, which was fantastic. But fun fact, my daughter is in education. She is a teacher. So it's in my blood, my genes, something.
Yep. Samesies.
How about
So
you? Yeah.
Mom was a teacher. She and Patty were both English teachers, and then my mom was special ed teacher, and then she was a guidance counselor. So kind of following those lines. So I said the same thing Karen did. Oh, hell no. I'm not going into education. Abso-freaking-lutely not. And then the dot-com bubble burst and a bunch of layoffs happened. And I was like, well, it might be nice to have a steady paycheck. So I went back and ended up in special ed. Loved it, but got to the point where I had 2 kiddos and was watching the IEP meetings and realizing how hard I was working with my neurodivergent kiddos. And just, not that parents don't work hard, but just realizing what I had to put in, and the parents that were just kind of faxing it in and dropping their kids off at the beginning of the day and like letting us deal with it. It just, after a while, it was like, I cannot do this anymore. And I had run into kind of a difficult principle. We'll just put it that way. And that's something we'll talk about, is leadership and kind of what that can happen. So I am still in education, just in a different aspect. I do literacy work with a company. But yeah, that's my story. Miss Amanda.
Well, and I share such similar stories to you both. 3rd generation educator. I never knew my dad's dad because he died of a heart attack when my dad was a senior in high school.
Oh.
He was the high school principal. And so in hindsight of all the various school personnel that I know that have died pretty suddenly, either on the job or immediately upon retirement, because it will do that to you. If you do it well, it's going to kill you. That's what I told someone the other day, unfortunately.
Yep, that is true.
So, very similar. Oh, hell no. I've seen this. I'm not going into this profession. So what did I do? Psychology, of course, right? And very similar. I have my master's. And I'm like, I don't want to listen to people's problems all day, was one. And guess what? When you're an administrator, that's all you're going to do is listen to people's problems all day and help them solve them and try to guide. And 2, at the time, I didn't have all of my hours, and it was going to take, so many hours. And I was making, and what I could get at the time was like almost triple. I'm 23. I need money, right? My parents are like, you're done. You have a master's, do something. And I'm like, well, I can go make $48,000 and teaching, right? And so then I got reeled in, and then I got my another master's, and on and on and on.
Yeah,
So,
the degree collecting is, we got to touch on the degree collecting part for sure.
Always. And the more certifications and diversifying that. But I, very similar, also taught special ed, and then was an assistant principal, coordinator for special ed, director, executive director. So all of the things, really, I feel like from all of the areas, I always worked in very large metro districts, and I am currently back serving a rural area. So rural education, not that I didn't grow up rural, but having that just appears to be another layer of my diversifying and experience in education of trying to help with their teacher pipeline and certification and all that entails, especially when you're not remotely close to a university.
Yep.
Or the State Department of Education or anything that can provide that support and outreach. So,
yep. And now you tell us a little bit about, because I know you came back to this in September, but before this, you were doing consulting. I know you're still doing it, but tell us a little bit, remind the listeners about that.
Yes. So a huge piece of the consulting is leadership, lifestyle, and wellness development. So really combining everything, all of my experience, right, of administration, psychology. I have a lifestyle and wellness certification. So all of those aspects became really important to me because we throw this myth around, I think, everywhere, but especially in education of work-life balance and self-care, and it's really just superficial. That we don't live it, we don't practice it, and not understanding. And so I'm really trying to merge all of that into a space, but also, I've got to pay bills. And when you're really at the hands of a lot of grant funding and things like that, I still love coaching and consulting with districts, and I get to do that just in a different capacity right now.
So I have a feeling I know what you're going to say. However, when you think about education right now, what is the first word that comes to mind? And just be aware you can curse on this podcast.
Yeah. Which is why I love you all. A clusterfuck.
There you go.
That was
there you go.
That was a term my dad had about more so his situation, but his school 20 years ago, and it's more so relevant now than ever.
What do you think are some of the changes? And you both can speak to this. I feel like my experience in education was just a minute. So I feel like I'm more on the asking the questions end of this discussion, but I can certainly pop in here and there. But what do you think are the biggest things that have changed over the decades in education that hasn't made it easier for teachers or educators or administrators?
Mandy, you want to take that first?
Well, and I'll just tell you, when I first became an administrator, 20 years ago, the biggest issues a campus level principal were dealing with at a large high school were holes in jeans, like dress code, right? Now
Sorry.
I'm like,
oh my God, I thought you were kidding.
Code? No, dress code, piercings, tardies, and we were just and then cell phones, but not so much of the social media side of cell phone, just having it out, right? And then now we're like, I could care less what you wear, all of the things. And so when we look at what not only our administrators, but your teachers are dealing with on a daily basis, it's beyond anything anyone could have planned for. Seeing all of that and then seeing us try to embrace technology and trying to incorporate ed tech in all of these that was supposed to make the job potentially easier, I really think has just created more and more and more. One more thing to do. We never take anything away. In my class in the fall, we did a section on the legal aspects and how, just policy and how we got here. And since 2001, how many different amendments have been made at the federal level without any additional funding. As we know, special ed has never been funded to the level it was intended to since 1975. And it doesn't matter who's in office. So this is it's a neither side. Neither side has done their job and neither side has stepped up. So I think we take that off the table, although politics is every aspect of now public education. It is so politicized that
True that.
I don't even know why anyone would want to subject themselves to the political ramifications. So I feel like I said a lot, and I don't even know that I answered the question because so much has changed, and I don't know really that any for the better. And pay hasn't increased to the level that anything else in the outside world has increased. And the respect for the profession has diminished and continues to diminish. And so, with all that,
I
sign up.
thought for sure after COVID, after what we put our administrators and teachers through with educating kids from home, I mean, after witnessing that, I thought, okay, now people are going to get it. People are going to understand what these teachers are going through, and we're going to start paying them what they're worth. Ha! Wrong.
My name is Karen Shatafian, and I am a shameless coffee addict and empowerment coach for women, and my love language is authenticity. My mission is helping women unapologetically design a life they're in love with. Because what the hell are we waiting for? My website, KarenShatafian.com, has all my coaching packages and free offers like my Midlife Reclamation Guide. In it, you'll find tools to help you decide how to create the most inspired and empowered version of yourself and your life. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram talking about ways women can show up for themselves after decades of showing up for everyone else. Join me as we throw off the shackles and live our best freaking lives. See the show notes for all the details. Cheers.
And I think for a minute we all did. And then somehow the tables just flipped and it actually became worse. And the expectations of you're available 24/7. I mean, I like always available because of all the platforms. Now you've got the Remind and the GroupMe and the email, and you can hop on a Google Meets. You know, we taught parents a lot of things of how to help communicate, but I'm not sure that we taught people how to now take these things and, okay, you've got to go do, not calling for the continual reinforcement and help.
So what's interesting about this is I work for an ed tech company now. So I think I can bring a little different flavor to this. So to answer your original question, Karen, I think the pandemic has a lot to answer for. Part of that is that you had really a whole generation of kids that were basically feral because not everybody had a mom or even a dad or even one of them that could be at home and supervise everything during the pandemic. So the quote unquote behaviors that one would expect, for example, a typical kindergartner to have were not there. And so we now spend a lot of time just teaching those lower grades how to do school, like how to stand in a line, how to just things that wouldn't be so random before. And we're continually playing catch up for that. So I think that's one thing that's changed. What I noticed, the other thing is that around this time, I would say maybe just before the pandemic, and I won't go down this whole rabbit hole, but I focus on literacy. The science of reading is something that really came to the forefront. And long story short, it's basically everything we know to be research-based about teaching reading, right? And I mean, the jury's out now. We know what the science is. We know how to teach reading. But guess what? So many teachers were not taught this in their pre-professional programs. So many teachers. And now they're really struggling and they're at a loss. And it unfortunately, it kind of puts them in the middle of well, I've always done it this way kind of thing. And teachers have so little autonomy as it is. They want to have the parts of the job where they can be creative and things like that. But unfortunately, a lot of times that best practice stuff, they're not being taught how to do it. The districts aren't supporting it. And so that means that kids are not being taught to read, and not necessarily through any fault of the teacher. It's this antiquated system. So that's the second thing. The third thing is, tech is as tech does. I am really proud that I work for a company that only has kiddos on screens for the exact amount of time they need to get to be grade level with reading. You guys have no idea how many people I talk to like on a weekly basis that are like, oh yeah, I just want to throw some kids on some screens during center time. And I'm like, nope. Like, what? You won't sell me some license? Nope. Because the specific product I have, the teacher has to be a part of it and monitoring the data and really using it as a tool. So to your point, Amanda, the idea of using technology as a tool, not a Band-Aid, not a babysitter, not one more thing, like helping the teacher get data and do their job. And that's, I mean, what I do when it's done right, it doesn't add to the burden, it takes it off. But I spend so much time re-educating districts and people about like, no, this is what it's intended to do. And so the system is just not built to support some of these things that I think could really help it, if that makes sense. So that's my 5 cents.
I'll tell you one more thing on the reading. I will say I'm in the 50th, the state that is now hopping on board on science of reading, even though many of us, we were already doing it, right? And many of us have long had that training. Once, as my state got the glorious recognition of being 50th, then every politician, Chamber of Commerce decided we're going to do science of reading. When we're like, we're already doing it.
What state are you from? Remind me.
Oklahoma.
Okay. Yeah, I think we've taken over your 50th spot here in Oregon. So you're welcome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
40. I think we're 47. Sorry.
Yes.
Silly me.
If we could be 47th, I think we'd have a big statewide party. But so now we have a lot of people that are making policy. Again, there's no additional funding. There's no support for those. But we're also a state that just let anyone with a bachelor's degree come and be a teacher.
I always say, "Oh, you're the janitor. Can you teach AP physics?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
you're the school secretary. We really need someone to write these IEPs." And we're laughing, but this is real life, y'all. I have like specific examples of when this happened. Like this is how desperate we are. So, 100% agree.
Well, and I think that in general, people think that. I think that is like, oh, well, I just graduated. I have a degree in whatever. Maybe I'll just teach. Or, I don't know. People look at it, I feel like, as a fallback instead of like a career. Or this is like my daughter. I wish she was not passionate about children. I wish she didn't want to be a teacher, honestly, because I'm just like, girl, you are you're just, yeah, it's going to be a road, but it's like, this is in her. And so I can't do anything about it. But I think sadly, a lot of people look at it as, just like, oh, by the way, career.
Yes. And I've started asking people, trying to gauge, is this a job or is this a profession?
Mm-hmm.
And when I can gauge that level, then I know how much effort I'm going to give in coaching and consulting, right? You're seeing it more and more. I think a huge piece of that is, I know for sure my parents' generation, as far as how retirement was such a big deal, and once you made that teacher retirement, you were, okay, good. Well, what we did in Oklahoma, Texas, was we expanded and added another 10 years to how long you have to work. So instead of being able, to retire at what they called a rule of 80, now it's a rule of 90, when it should be going the other way, right? If someone can hang in this job right now with all of the current environment and behavior, and you're a therapist and all the things, much like a police officer, they're encouraging their folks after so long, okay, you need 20 years, let's retire.
Oh my God, I wish.
Right? And in education, we're like, you're going to have to hang on for 40. And so the younger kids see that and they're like, I'm not even going to bother. That's not an aspiration any longer. So it is a job until something else comes along.
So I think, people think that it's just maybe one big issue that makes the industry itself toxic. I love, Lisa says this a lot, but it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? So what do you think are the top 2 to 3 things that make the job feel toxic instead of meaningful?
For me, it can still be meaningful with leadership. The principal's the most important job you're going to hire or fire, because that can, even with everything else going on, can still make the climate and culture of your day-to-day for a teacher manageable. But those people are becoming harder and harder to find as well. We're starting alternative certification to principalship because people don't want it, because they see everything you have to do now.
So I was stalking you a little bit, Amanda, and I was looking on your LinkedIn, and or maybe it was your website, but your one of your titles or one of your taglines is holistic leadership. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because I love the sound of that.
Well, and we're a human-centered service industry in education. And so you cannot just look at someone's great with standards and curriculum, but they're terrible with parents or the relationships with students. Like, you've got to eventually have, and as the leader, you have to touch on every aspect to bring people up. Meaning, if I'm great, like, I have teachers that are exceptional with standards-based grading. Okay, I don't need you to go to another PLC workshop this summer. I need you to go to an ed tech workshop. Like, we have got to diversify how we help our people, but we don't, because we're driven by our budget and what speaker we can get this year that fits into our timeline and our budget, whether it addresses your staff and their needs or not.
Oof.
True that.
Whoa. I just have to shout out, I have a lot of my dearest girlfriends who I graduated college with who are teachers, all of them in elementary school. One of them was in high school and she retired 2 years ago. But I just have to shout them out right now because they are still, it's 35 years they've been teaching. And when we get together, granted, they talk about things that they do not like and that are very challenging, but they still express stories with like a glimmer and like a full heart. And so all the teachers that have been out there 20 plus years, including my besties, I just want to shout them out because, like you were talking about earlier, like, if you're a police officer for that amount of time, you should retire after, a set amount. And why we have teachers and just keep them going until they drop, like, just
yes,
that didn't come out right, but you know what I mean.
No, it's not far off, really.
It's not.
And you can tell the teacher, like, I remember when my kids were in school, you can tell the teachers that need to retire. You can tell they're checked out, and they should be. Like, they've literally been doing it for decades because it takes so much. And it takes so much that people don't even recognize. Like, I think just kind of I was in it for a minute, but from the outside looking in, you're not allowed to really set boundaries. Like, if you want to be a good teacher, you can't set boundaries because you're taking work home. Like you said, you're messaging parents on the weekends or whatever. You're on like 24/7. You can't ever set it to the side and then just kind of give yourself some self-care. And I think that is something that just makes it, especially hard for women and men to teach for 30 plus years,
And for those of you out there that are going, this is so silly, they get their summers off. Let me explain something to you. Okay? Technically, yes. However, for example, I'm in the private sector now, right? So I'm back to like, I have a certain number of vacation weeks and blah, 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 blah. And people are like, oh, I'm so sorry you don't get your summers off. I'm like, are you joking me? When I was a teacher, right, we would get out every year, like third week of June, because we start after Labor Day. It would take till probably post 4th of July, a week for me not to be like twitching, like the eye twitch and things, and like sleep and like just like function, right? And then I'd maybe get a vacation in for a couple weeks. And then we're hitting August. And then the nightmares start. The stress dreams, the panic stuff. And so August was toast because I was just basically waiting to go back. So there is no like, let's refresh and restore in the summer. So anybody out there who's like, oh, well, they get paid well enough for somebody that only works 2/3 of the year. Let me tell you, you don't want to meet me in a dark alley because I will explain you exactly what's going on there. It ain't anything like you think it is.
And the hours, when you look at the hours put in, let's just say September to June, you've exceeded the next 2 months. But then you're also meeting other requirements as far as training, planning, curriculum writing, and whatever personal things you have to get done in that time. Because as you said, you're not going to take doctor's appointments. You're not going to schedule any big surgeries or trips during the year. Those things are put off and you get all of them done in the summer because it was more work to be gone.
Exactly.
And you have more heck to clean up, which means I just used a day of leave and now I'm going to be up here all weekend or 3 nights preparing. Why am I even taking a day?
Nobody wants to take a sub day. No one. I don't care how sick you are, because exactly the prep for it and then the cleanup, it's exhausting. Like I would drag myself in there when I was on like my last like death wish, you know, if I had a sick kid, I'd come in, do sub plans, give them something to do, and then go right back out there. I want to touch for 1 second on something you brought up in terms of the education and the training. So something I also don't think people understand is that teachers don't get like a lot of free training. It's almost non-existent now, especially in my state where the professional learning is pretty much non-existent. So if you want to move up the pay scale, it's coming out of your wallet in terms of credits and moving up the pay scale by getting different things like a master's degree and this and that and the other, right? That is not something that there's funding for. You have to do it, right? And so you kind of get caught in this trap of like, okay, I'll just get the master's. Okay, now I'll get my admin credential. Okay, now I'll get my PhD. And I am basing this on zero fact, but I think I'm pretty accurate on this. If you put together the number of years the average, say, principal puts in their dollars, school, all of that, and you compare them to like a lawyer or a doctor and the number of years they put in, it's about the same. I'm going to say to be at the top of your profession. Well, y'all know there's no way a teaching salary compares in any way, shape, or form to a lawyer or a doctor. And you're still paying those same damn student loans off. So I'm here to tell you.
Okay, can I just say, wouldn't that be
Yes, please.
fantastic if teachers could bill like attorneys do? Like, I don't know if either of you have ever had to hire an attorney, but I went through a divorce. And so it's like, 10 minutes answering this email.
Yep.
$500.
Yep. Yeah. Been there, done that. Yeah. And honestly, like, yes, teachers should be paid more. Yes, the profession should be respected more. 100% agree. But I got to tell you, if you talk to teachers, that's not the number one thing that they're going to say is the biggest issue. At least in my opinion, what I've seen, yes, people want to be paid more. But if you could pick like the top 3 things that you feel like need to change in education to make it feel less toxic for you, pay is not going to be in the top. It just isn't, because this is a calling. It's not just a job, and people want to be effective. That's the bottom line. I don't know, Amanda, weigh in on that. You can say I'm full of baloney.
You are absolutely correct. Numerous studies on that. Now, it might impact 1 or 2 people, but overall, and I think people want to be recognized for their expertise. Mm-hmm. And people want to have that level of self-efficacy and that you're contributing. And we do a really poor job with our veteran teachers of giving them that and providing them that without, yes, go get a master's, be the reading specialist, be the counselor, all this. There's not, outside of a minuscule pay scale. I mean, it's laughable. We don't reward those veterans. I think I've seen some models. We're trying some here in this state to really try to get some additional funds, and not that it's ever going to match, but that it at least says we recognize your contribution, as opposed to now that we're in such a shortage, we're starting these new people out on the same level, and that should not be okay. Very similar, when I was special ed director, we got some incremental stipends of the longer you're there and the more, kind of just trying to help people see we recognize you and we recognize your loyalty and commitment to your district.
Hey there, I'm Lisa Corachella McDowell, your Midlife Pacific Northwest princess, here to guide you in the art of next leveling your life. I'm passionate about women's health and wellness in midlife, especially for moms parenting kids with unique needs like I do. I truly believe we can learn, grow, advocate, and care for the planet while taking care of ourselves and our families. And I'd love to help you do the same. And I'm beyond excited to tell you about my membership for maxed out mamas just like me, the Empowered Parent Collective. It's a space for parents to confidently advocate for their kids, build inclusive communities, educate themselves, and find balance and support along the way. To find out more about the Empowered Parent Collective, my classes, wellness offerings, parenting tips, advocacy resources, and exclusive Drinks with the Girls goodies, head to nextlevellifewithlisa.com. Let's survive and thrive in the messy middle together. For the hard to recruit positions, that was the thing that drove me crazy, right? Is yes, there's incentives and different kinds of things, but somehow they always moved the end zone on that one, right? So for example, for me, I got a scholarship in graduate school because I was going to do special ed. And then I taught for 13 years in a high poverty, high needs area. And so I got part of my loans forgiven. Now, that program is gone. So I'm like, I don't know how they're going to recruit people in those areas. But a lot of times there's been a lot of kind of information about student loans coming out and things like that. They've moved the goalpost so many times for people. And I mean, that is just frigging enraging to me that you're going to put all this work in and be like, okay, well, I'm going to do my time at this desperately, in need school and really do the hard work because I know it can be effective, but also I'm going to get some of my student loans forgiven, whatever. And then they move the goalpost. That is, I have no words.
Yeah. Yes. And it's happening a lot in the last few years. And we say there isn't money. And as I've been sitting on the other side, there's all these pots of money and you have to know how to tap into them. Your district has to know how to tap into them. And so it's one more thing. It's as opposed to making it easier and more accessible for people when we know there's a need.
I just think of that shell game. It's like
totally
when you move the shells around and like, well, which one has the money under it? Because before I was a certificated counselor, I worked for like foster youth programs and assistant counseling programs that were soft money. Like every year I got the pink slip, and they had to, figure it out. Oh, are we going to have enough money for you? And then lo and behold, there it is. But yeah, I just think it's like that shell game, and sadly, I think too, I don't know, you guys can talk about this better than I can, but it seems like politics plays into that as well. Sadly.
Yeah.
What's going to benefit the kids most.
Yeah. If I go down that rabbit hole too far, you'll be peeling me off the ceiling. But I will just say that for everybody out there that's like, oh, well, they only held up the funding for a little while this summer and then they got it. I'm just going to tell you right now, let's just assume for argument's sake that you're right. You're not. But let's just assume you're right. Okay. Do you have any idea how long it takes a school district to forecast the labor costs, the retirement costs, just the class sizes, all of that? Saying, just kidding, in the middle of the funding cycle, when they are trying to hire for the year and then putting them that far behind it's horrific. I don't know that I'm working with a single district in the 2 out of 3 states that I'm working with right now that is not shutting schools and in a 5-figure million deficit. It is brutal. I've had districts that have had to fire teachers mid-year because they don't have enough money to get through the school year. I mean, it is hardcore.
Yes, I haven't seen consolidation or school closures in the state of Oklahoma in at least 20 years, 25 probably. And there are multiple that are closing their doors.
Wow. That's wild.
And I think this is from what I read, a nationwide as far as student enrollment. So now when you could, maybe encourage someone to go somewhere else as a student or, a behavior challenge, or now I see like districts are actively recruiting kids to come to their school so they can maintain that enrollment, so they can keep the doors open and pay their staff.
Yeah. And the homeschool, you talk about things that have changed, like in the last 20 years, the homeschooling phenomenon it's been a sea change. And if I'm being honest, for the good and for the bad, right? It is very difficult for a district to maintain funding when you are just siphoning off students left and right in homeschool. And the argument is, well, they're not getting a great education. I can't argue with that. Like, public education has become difficult, and it depends on the district you're in. It absolutely does. It's not the same everywhere. But it's also a little bit of the Wild West, too. So it's a double-edged sword. Like, I think there's some benefits to it, but there's also a lot of stuff that's not so good. I see a lot of districts doing things to attract and keep students that can't be duplicated in homeschools. For example, here in Oregon, it's a huge explosion of dual immersion schools because you can't replicate that in a homeschool environment. So it's forcing districts to think out of the box in terms of things that they can do, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And honestly, with what my daughter went through in middle school, I was like, oh no, I'm not homeschooling, or I'm not going to put her in one of those programs. I probably should have, to be completely honest. So I don't know how you weigh in on that, Amanda, but I think that is another huge, huge critical piece in the last 20 years that's really changed education
drastically. And without fail, at some point, not all students would come back. And then you're taxed with their scores and getting them caught up and all of those things. And just the social aspects of human interaction and how we solve conflicts and problems, which is very lacking in our society, not just with our kids.
One of the things that I always had to do, and it just broke my heart every time, is, long story short, without getting into like a primer on special ed law, let's say a student is homeschooled and then they come back into the public school and they have a disability and would otherwise be eligible for special education. Unfortunately, when you take them out and homeschool them, basically what that means is it almost counts against you because it's considered a lack of instruction. And if there's a way for the school to say, you know what, this isn't due to their disability, this is due to the lack of instruction, i.e., this child was homeschooled, they don't have to find them eligible. Now, one would think they would want to find them eligible because then that's more money coming in. But it was heartbreaking to see these kids that have basically been homeschooled or gone to like Montessori. And again, I'm not like throwing shade. I'm not saying like that's a bad thing. But then try to enter when I was teaching high school and they were just flattened. Like they could not keep up with the pace. And then it was like, oh, well, they have a disability. And there was literally nothing I could do. And it broke my heart.
I remember when I was counseling, we had a girl, she was in 4th grade, and her mom brought her in to enroll her in school, and she'd been homeschooled the whole time, could not read a bit.
Yep.
And I mean, in 4th grade, like that's a hard time to not be able to read, right? And I felt bad for mom because she didn't know, she didn't know that there was a disability happening, but I want to think she knew that her daughter should have been reading by 4th grade, but I think she was embarrassed too. And she was like, oh no, we can do this, and then she got to the point where we can't. But yeah, I just think it's hard. It's just hard when you're a parent or an educator, right? Because hopefully 95% of us want what's best for the child, but we aren't always on the same page about what that looks like.
And I would say too, we're in an economic hardship across the country, right? And so when your state is floating out tax breaks or vouchers for you struggling parent, I mean, you're going to hop on board if you have to. I mean, I understand as a parent, if you're making it financially, there are a lot of other reasons that those decisions have been made, right? But the cost or the gain isn't there. In the long run, it's going to end up costing a parent more because you're going to have to do remediation or tutoring, or the student isn't going to get into college, or all of these things that I don't think in the long run people understand or consider, because you're just trying to put food on the table or make, a situation more convenient if there's a bullying issue or struggle. Again, we've added and we've added and we've added, and nothing's been removed. And I think that's the huge piece is here's one more thing. Here's one more option.
Go ahead.
Go.
No,
you. I was
Yep.
just going to dive into the whole burnout thing, but
this is why we have one brain, because I was going to talk about the mental emotional toll, because we have one brain. So go for it, girl.
No, you go. I'm going to take a break.
Oh, my sweet Jesus God. So I think this dovetails nicely into a piece that's kind of been hanging over this conversation, but really deserves to be talked about more specifically. And that is the mental and emotional toll of being an educator. And I mean, I'm not like, this isn't just like, oh, it's really stressful. Like, I am literally talking about how it affects your health, your own life, even having your own life, all of it. I remember, and this is kind of a funny thing, but it's not. My dad used to be like, you teachers, you just need to stand up and tell these kids that you need a bathroom break. That is just unconscionable that you can't do that. And I was like, you have no idea what I do on a daily basis, do you? Right? Everything from like my godmother, who's a teacher, she's like, yeah, I had to go see the urologist. It's from years of like basically holding my bladder for 8 hours straight. And he was like, you teachers. And he called it like teacher bladder, like, because you end up with like problems afterwards, right? So it's kind of funny, but it's not. I mean, it's bad. And I know we can all tell stories of like teachers that have just gone off the deep end in not so good ways.
And I think, again, the challenges have always been there. We just are more aware, and they're increasing, obviously. And we've opened up, let's talk about it. We need to process it and work through it because we know it impacts the student's ability to learn and make gains. So let's address it. But the level of secondary trauma, and it's not just on this year I dealt with this. It's daily of something. You're lucky if you can make it through a week without a student dying in some form or having a terminal disease, a parent dying, a staff member, a level of threat. And I mean, I don't think I have had time, in the last year to two to really sit back and reflect on a lot of things. And I'm like, man, did not remotely address that because you don't have time, because you put one fire out and you go right on to the next and you just keep plugging away.
One tortured foot after another. And let's just call out the fact that 30 years ago, you didn't think you were taking a job where you could literally be killed by a lone gunman on any given day. And whether or not wherever you stand on the gun issue, that's irrelevant. The statistics show that in the last 30 years, you are taking your life into your hands by stepping into a school every day. And I would venture to say that the statistics between stepping into a school building and stepping into an office building or other places, I'm going to bet the chances of you encountering a violent situation are way up in schools. And again, I'm just talking out my butt, but I would bet that the statistics and the research bear me out.
I got talked to, which is funny because it's,
oh dear,
been in the news lately about, women need to smile more. And so I had a parent and I had a board member that was like, you need to smile more. This is what.
Are you kidding me?
home. And I'm like, I am on duty from this time to this time. And so it's hard because I am constantly thinking safety first and foremost in every aspect. I don't know why we made cafeterias with all these glass windows so we can see out, but it's also that's easy entrance, that, recess, all of these things of like, it's so easy to access a school, even with all of our safety measures now. There are still bus, sporting events. So you're nonstop thinking through these things. And it's like, it's hard to be lighthearted and fun because let's see if something happens to your child, how much you want me to smile.
And of course, it begs the question, are they asking the male administrators to smile more? I bet you they aren't.
No, absolutely not. Because they can be stern. That's, yeah.
No, I don't even have any words. I'm just,
right?
I just envision you like throat punching them or
smile at this,
right?
I know. Yes.
I'll make you smile. I'll give you something to smile about.
Fuck right off.
Right?
Your smile.
I know.
Oh God.
Oh wait.
And there's the patriarchy, ladies and gentlemen.
Safe from mentioning the patriarchy for an episode. Back to zero, where we started.
We almost made it.
We try, listeners. We really do. But there you go.
Okay, quick pause. Have we talked about the Pod Squad lately?
Oh, the Pod Squad. You mean our email list /VIP lounge /digital wine club?
Exactly. So listeners, if you're not on it yet, you're basically making life harder for yourself when it comes to podcasts.
Like trying to scroll for show notes while speed walking on a treadmill. Wait, what was that link again? Oh, no. Grab the side rails.
Or pulling up that book we mentioned while you're in the Starbucks line and then realizing everybody else moved up 3 cars and now you're that woman.
We've all been there. That's why we made the Pod Squad. You'll get new episode alerts every week with direct links. Easy to listen, easy to share.
And show notes straight to your inbox. So when we drop a life-changing product, book, hot tip, or yummy new drink, you're not rummaging through your memory like a woman searching for her reading glasses when they're on top of her head.
It's organized, it's helpful, it's for you, babes.
So join the Pod Squad. The link is in the show notes. Just tap it.
Snacks, sarcasm, solidarity.
And obviously, fighting the patriarchy.
We write at dawn. Honestly,
The safety issue is something that is just, when you sit back and you think about it, when you think about the devastation and the losses that this country has had over the past 20 years, it's amazing to me that, first of all, we're not paying our people more, but also that we all can't be on the same page. Like, hey, this is important. And, like you said, Lisa, it doesn't matter where you are on the gun issue, but it's like, let's freaking keep our educators and our children safe. It's mind blowing. Honestly, that's something that teachers and administrators have to worry about amongst everything else. Like you said, Amanda, it's one more thing. And that's a big fucking thing.
Yeah. Even the trauma around preparing kids to stay safe during something like that.
The drills.
I can tell you story after story. My own daughter. In middle school, the kid that was absolutely mercilessly bullying her, they're going through an active shooter drill, and he turns to her and he says, I hope it's a real drill so somebody shoots you in the head.
Oh, my goodness.
And then they try to tell me that wasn't an active threat that he made. Don't even get me started.
I'm so proud of you for staying out of jail.
Thank you.
I wanted to go to that
Oh, girl. Let me just tell you, there's not a day that goes by that I don't look around the neighborhood and just see what I need to see. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's that.
And I think that's when it's so frustrating that you have politicians or parents or the news just bad-mouthing teachers and putting them in a negative light when it's like, these are people putting their lives on the line for your child. And 99% want absolutely what is best for your child. It is overwhelming majority. Maybe we don't know how to express it or demonstrate it or show it, but they do.
Nobody does this work just for the paycheck. News freaking flash. Okay, I'm just saying. That's why I'm saying the pay is, yes, people want to be paid more, but it is not even in the top 3 of issues that people have. The only reason you get into education is because you want to make a difference. Period. End of story. Right? I don't care how bad of a teacher you are, because why the hell else would you do it? There's literally no other reason why. Like, you could go clean houses and make more money, for God's sakes.
So I want to ask both of you a question, because I know it's already been an hour or almost an hour. But so for somebody like my daughter, a 27-year-old, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, fired up to make a difference, who is hell-bent on being an educator, what would you tell her, or what would you tell people like her who are choosing education as their profession? Uh-oh.
Thank you. Thank you. We need you. But this is what I tell people. You may not be in the right place. Like, this can be, there's all the stress. You've got to make sure you're in the right supportive environment. That's how you stay with the longevity, where people recognize your passion and your strengths and they build on that. And not build in, we're going to give you all this additional responsibility. Because as we also know, in education, if you're good at what you do, you're going to get more and more and more responsibility.
Can you say no? Like, what happens as a teacher if your principal comes to you and says, okay, I want you to do blah, blah, blah now?
No. Do you want a job?
Right.
It's just a bonus if they're going to throw in a couple $100 extra a week.
Dang.
I think we need this new generation of teachers to really stand together. And I think they've got, and I hate to encourage anyone to get politically active, but you've got to. And it starts even with your local legislators. So I invite them to everything we do, because I want people to see and showcase what our teachers are doing. And then get on the front line with ensuring policy that's being written is accurate of what is needed, and not just, and I hate it that we are at this place, but I don't think things are going to change if you're not involved in some aspect. You don't have to go protest or lobby at the Capitol, but I think you've got to use your voice and be heard and advocate for yourself.
Agreed.
Of that.
So for me, I think Amanda spoke about the big picture kind of stuff. I want to take it down to kind of the level of the one person. And honestly, if I had it to do over again, I would have gotten better at compartmentalizing. It's a very tricky balance because you have to put your heart and soul into it, but you also have to be able to take your heart and soul out of it, right? And there's definitely this temptation to be like, okay, if I can just get to my 3rd year, or if I could just get to the point where I'm teaching 3rd grade every year, or I don't have a new prep or whatever, then it's going to be fine, right? The problem is it's never going to be the same with the way things are. And to boot, if you're like, oh, this is so great, I'm at a great school, I love it, principals leave. Leadership changes. And it's really doing yourself a disservice to just kind of chill and be like, I'm at a great school with a great principal. I'm teaching a great, I sound like doom and gloom, but just don't put your heart in that basket. You gotta be able to compartmentalize so you have a life. You have to be able to be nimble and learn new skills if you need to, because the alternative is getting sucked into these horrible situations. In my case, I had great reviews from every principal I ever worked with. Everybody loved me. And then I got in one principal who just decided that he didn't like me and ran me out.
You didn't smile enough.
Well, okay. Do you want to know why he said he fired me? This is the best thing ever. Because I called in front of the class, I called a math problem a brain pretzel, thereby impeding my students' ability to reach the learning objectives I had set out for them. I shit you not. I mean, he was obviously trying to get rid of me.
I was just saying, don't you think there are some other things going on
100%
behind the scenes?
After that, like, he's hauling me in for being not being there during a prep because I had to go give my son medication. And he's like, why weren't you on? I could go on for hours on that one. But my point in all this is you just unfortunately can't sit back and be like, all right, I'm good. You have to always be honing your skills. You have to always be aware of what's going on in the school down there. What are some other schools I might be happy at? What are some other districts I might be happy at? Because it has a way of just slapping you in front of the face when you're not ready for it. So you got to grow up and get a thick skin real darn quick and be able to do the impossible, which is pivot from having all the love and heart and soul that you can for these kids, but also having as much for yourself and knowing when to set a boundary and knowing when to be like, yeah, well, I'm sorry, my kid takes federally regulated medication. What would you suggest that I do?
Right. Networking is probably the best way to grow. And it's really the side that I love about this profession is the amount of people, amazing people that I've met.
Absolutely.
And that I can call and text right now and get a job if I needed to, or get a reference, or vice versa, for them. And so really making sure you've got those connections is super helpful. And just for commiserating, especially if you're a solo as far as your grade level or what you're teaching. When you get into administration, absolutely. Just because you can't have any sort of letdown or vulnerability with your staff. Like, they can't know what's going on, but you've got to get it out somewhere. It's really important.
Okay, so I have the flip side to that. I think you guys have done a really good job of letting our listeners know, if they don't already, kind of like a bird's eye view into the life of an educator. But what's one thing you would want the non-educators to do? Maybe we have parents listening or people who aren't, in the trenches of education. What's something you want them to walk away from this episode with?
Have your teachers' backs and be an advocate for them. That is the number one best way to turn a narrative, either in a community, on social media, even with legislators. They're going to listen more to parents than they are to your teachers. And so once you find that group of parents that can be supportive, I would say as a teacher, you need to reach out and you need to build that bridge where you've got some of that shared responsibility. The job's too big for either one of us to take this on solo.
Oh, that gave me goosebumps. I love that.
I think from my perspective, what I would say is, a lot of people think the education system in this country has nothing to do with them when they don't have a kid in school or a grandchild in school, or they're not in the profession, or whatever that might be. I'm here to tell you, we are growing citizens in this profession. So you need to give a shit about it because it impacts you a lot more than you think it does. Just take the pandemic for an example. I promise you, in about 4 or 5 years, when these kids leave high school, you are going to see a generation of kids that does not how to do work or do citizenship because they've always been behind. And that's just one example. So you need to start giving a shit because it will impact you. I don't care how far removed you think you are. We are educating citizens of our society. And that is just the reality of the situation.
Before we really wrap it up, what is one thing that you wish teachers knew about life outside of education?
That other people don't answer their email when they're on vacation.
What a novel idea.
They don't take work home at night. They're watching TV or present at their kids' game or involved in the community. It was kind of eye-opening to me because I thought, regardless of what profession I'm in, that's just the work ethic that I have. And to some extent it is, and some extent it's avoidance and a whole other piece, right? But not people outside of education they're much more balanced. They're not taking their work as personally. But for the large part, those people aren't dealing with humans. And so that's a massive difference when you're shaping and taking on that burden of our next generation. And if I can do one more thing for this student, they'll get it. And so we keep going back and we keep going back. We've got to give ourselves some grace.
I like that. I think for me, it's know your worth. I remember when I got laid off by that principal, I mean, I was despondent, but I was very fortunate in that I had some skills that I could lean back on because I'd done sales before. And it took me half a minute to get my mojo back. But when I did, I jumped into something that's been amazing for the most part. I think, and what happened is I remember I was trying to get a recommendation and get myself set up, and I got the job offer before. Because, yeah, fun fact, teaching's the only job you get fired from that you have to work the rest of the year to do. So in between crying my eyes out, right, and teaching. So I remember I got the job offer and I let HR know, okay, yeah, I'm leaving. You got to find someone. They're like, well, we can't. It's so hard to replace special ed teachers. Like, we can't find anyone. And I said, I guess you should have thought of that before you let me go. Bye. Right? And I was like, you find someone with 2 weeks or I'm gone. So I think that what I mean by that is teachers are really, I mean, it's like an abusive relationship. Like you're told that's all you can do. Like maybe you can switch districts and you're going to lose all your tenure, or maybe you can do this or that, but that's it. You made your bed. Now you need to lie in it. Do not fool yourself for 1 second that all you will have training and skills to do is be in a classroom, in a K through 12 classroom, because I promise you have a lot more transferable skills than anyone is ever going to let you know, because if they did, you would leave and find something that is just as meaningful and does just as much good for the world, but doesn't make you want to puke your guts out every night when you come home. So do not be under that false impression. I beg of you. I've seen so many teachers stay in that abuse. Let's just call it what it is, that abusive relationship for too long because they don't think they have a choice.
Whoa. You guys, I don't even know what to say. Like, there were so many moments during this episode that I had goosebumps and that I was pissed off. And honestly, I think, Amanda, what you were talking about, the reason that people get into education is because they want to make a difference. But that's the conundrum they get in, right? When it's like, oh yeah, sure, I'm going to take all this work home and I'm going to do this extra research and I'm going to, really figure this out because I know that if I just figure out this one thing, I can really help, Johnny learn how to do whatever is math. And so it just becomes such a rock and hard place situation. But I love what both of you said about really, taking care of yourself as a human also, right? Because if you plan on being in this industry for decades, you have to really learn how to take care of yourself. So listeners, thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you enjoyed this as much as we did. Amanda, where can people find you if they want to know more about you or seek you out? Where can they find you?
midlifecatalyst.net and Midlife Catalyst across all social media platforms. I'm Amanda Yance on LinkedIn. I would say I'm probably most active right now on Threads, which has nothing to do with my business and more to do with my sanity and how I'm getting the news. But Instagram is always easy to find.
Yeah, we'll put all her links in the show notes. And speaking of links, Please go to drinkswiththegirlspodcast.com for all things podcast related. Join the pod squad, do the things, send this to a teacher bestie in your life who's like trying to make it through April. April's the hardest month of the school year, people. Right, Amanda? Like April is like the wall because you come back from spring break and you're like, oh, Christ, I have 9 more weeks I got to get through and everything's stacking up. So send it to, and we deliberately like put this episode in around this time of year. So send it to one of your teacher besties. They could use a little mojo and some support right now, I guarantee you.
And I think one of the things we love to do on this podcast is help women feel less alone. So if one of your teacher besties, we could help her feel less alone, that she's not losing her mind or she's not the only one, that we want to do that. So thank you, everybody. We will see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.